Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into our newest creation here at WTOV 9. It's Jacked Up with Jack Hillgrove. I am Jack Hillgrove, sports anchor here at WTOV 9, and this is the newest podcast series here at News 9. We're going to talk everything sports up and down the Ohio Valley on a weekly basis. So excited to dive into this journey with you guys and hope that you follow along. I plan to bring in some fantastic guests to talk everything in the Pittsburgh sports world. We'll dive out and we'll talk about Ohio and West Virginia sports as well. And of course, we're not going to forget about our local high school sports as well. A ton of good ideas, a ton of good guests in store as we head down this road, Jacked Up weekly here. We're going to post it to our YouTube channel. It'll be on our website. I plan to stream some live episodes to our Facebook page as well. Tons of cool ideas. And as we get on this journey, maybe I could seem like I'm kind of babbling right now because this is, a brand new project that I'm really passionate about. I'm really excited about and hope that you guys follow me down this road because I hope you enjoy it as much as I'm going to enjoy bringing it to you. So with that, let's dive into some things. A cool episode planned for episode 1 today. We're only 9 days past the Super Bowl. We're only a week and a half or whatever since the NFL season is complete. This past Sunday was our first Sunday without football since September. But you can never not get tired of talking about the NFL. One of my very good friends who I spent a lot of time with at Waynesburg University in my college days, one of my very good buddies to this day, Donny Football of 93.7 The Fan, producer of the PM team with Andrew Filipponi, and Chris Muller will join us to talk about the Steelers. And that is where I want to open up this monologue. The Pittsburgh Steelers coming off of a 10-7 mark in 2023-2024, first-round exit to the Buffalo Bills. And you can't help but feel kind of lost when it comes to this team, right? I mean, you look at, and we're going to talk about this with Donnie later, you look at everywhere else across the NFL. You know what? Not even the NFL, the AFC. Not even the AFC. The AFC North. You've got better quarterbacks in Baltimore. You've got better quarterback in Cincinnati. And I think you've got a better quarterback in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson right now. Now, Browns fans might not necessarily think that Deshaun Watson is anything to write home about. He's definitely underperformed so far with his tenure as a Brown. But it's definitely a heck of a lot better than what the Steelers have had playing quarterback for them the past 2 seasons, whether that's Mason Rudolph, who the last 3 games of the year, including the playoff game, is the best quarterback play since Big Ben retired. Definitely better than Mitch Trubisky. You hate to see a guy lose their job, but it was definitely warranted. The Steelers cutting Mitch Trubisky along with a couple of other players last week. And Kenny Pickett, their first-round pick out of Pitt. And if you know me, you know that I'm a Pitt guy at heart. I grew up a Pitt fan. So to see Kenny Pickett come to the Pittsburgh Steelers from the University of Pittsburgh as a quarterback fired me up. Fired me up back in 2018 or 2017 when the Steelers drafted James Conner at running back. To have a Pitt guy playing quarterback was awesome. Now I'm singing a different tune about Kenny Pickett. 13 touchdowns so far in his first 2 seasons in the NFL, 713 pass attempts. You've got a difference from attempts to touchdowns of 700. If that doesn't show you that you've swung and missed at finding your franchise quarterback, I don't know what does. Now, I can give him the benefit of the doubt. It could be a situation where Arthur Smith comes in here, Tom Arth, the new quarterbacks coach coming over from the Chargers. They could cook something up, cook a program up for Pickett to maybe salvage some good quarterback play there. I just don't see it. And because I don't see it, I want the Steelers to go out, make a trade, do something that is so alien to them, make a blockbuster trade for a quarterback and go get Justin Fields. And if you're an Ohio State fan and a Steelers fan watching this right now and just heard me say that, I hope that fires you up just as much as it fires me up. And Donnie, when he comes into the fold later on, Donny Football from 93.7 The Fan, we're going to talk about Justin Fields and the potential excitement there that he brings to the position. He said this, and I agree. Outside of Lamar Jackson, there isn't a quarterback in the NFL more exciting with their legs than Justin Fields. And you say that and you're like, Jack, what about Josh Allen? Sure, Josh Allen is but two different types of running the football at a quarterback, right? Josh Allen's almost 7 feet tall and can run guys over. And it works for them. But you look at Justin Fields and you see more elusiveness. You see more of the Lamar Jackson type play at quarterback out of the former Buckeye. And that has me fired up. Not so fired up where I would give up the first-round draft pick for Justin Fields, but I would give up that 52nd or 51st pick in the first round for him. 100%. 100% I'm giving up a second-round pick for Justin Fields. And I'd even throw in one of the fourth-round picks that you've got in 2024 as well. And if the Chicago Bears want a late-round pick, a day 3 pick in 2025, yeah, I'm doing that. And you say, whoa. If you go up and you give up 3 picks for a guy like Justin Fields, he's not coming in to be Kenny Pickett's backup. You're right. It's the best of both worlds. You get a guy like Justin Fields, a fresh start, more athletic, more dynamic potentially at the quarterback position than what the Steelers have had in the last couple of years, even in the last couple of years of Ben Roethlisberger, because if you're a Steelers fan and you watch Ben play in 2018, 2019, it wasn't what it was 2008, 2009. And then from Kenny Pickett's perspective, oh no, here's a guy that's threatening my job, a legitimate threat to my job. Mason Rudolph, if they were to bring him back next year, he's getting the same runaround treatment that he got the last 4 seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not a legitimate candidate to start. Now, is Mason Rudolph going to go somewhere else? And can he go somewhere else and be a backup? 100%. 100% he can go be a backup somewhere else. But Kenny Pickett, you look at Justin Fields and you see a legitimate competition. So it's either going to make or break him. It's going to push it's going to push Kenny Pickett past Justin Fields to compete to start, to be a legitimate NFL starter. It's going to light a fire under his keister, or he loses out. And you've got a guy like Justin Fields for at least another year under center, and you can see what you have there. Fresh starts work for teams. Fresh starts work for players. Look at Baker Mayfield. His career was dead in the water. Nobody wanted him. Waived by Carolina after Cleveland had no problem trading him to the Panthers when they were able to get Deshaun Watson. And he ends up making a start for Los Angeles, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took a flyer on him. How'd that work out? They won their division and they won a playoff game. Can I think Justin Fields can do that for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Win the division? Maybe you're getting a little bit different there. What's the word I'm looking for? Grasping at straws, so to speak, because you've got Lamar Jackson, MVP, just led the Ravens to the number 1 seed in the AFC. You got Joe Burrow coming back from a season-ending injury. If they're able to kind of piece the right pieces together, they're going to be better than the Steelers. So no. But I could see the Steelers getting into the playoffs as a 5, 6, 7 seed if it works out, and winning a playoff game, going on the road, especially if you're the 5 seed. You look at the top of the AFC, and it's Kansas City, it's Buffalo, and it's probably the winner of the AFC North, whether that's Baltimore or Cincinnati. And the 4 seed will probably be that AFC South winner. And everybody's got a chance at that division title, with the exception of Tennessee next year. Houston, Jacksonville, Indy. Steelers can go on the road and beat any of those 3 teams in the first round of the playoffs if they're able to piece the right pieces together, get themselves good quarterback play, get themselves competent play calling and offensive coordinator, and can figure it out from there. That's a lot of ifs, but I'm saying Justin Fields and acquiring him is a step in the right direction as far as increasing your likability and your chances of being a legitimate contender in the AFC, let alone the NFL. All roads run through Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes might be the greatest quarterback of all time right now. Let's make a legitimate case that he's number 2. 3 Super Bowls before he's 30. 3 Super Bowl MVPs. Went to another one. He got killed the other one by Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, but he's been to 4 Super Bowls before he turns 30 years old. And his coach is going to stay put. His best weapon and Travis Kelce is going to stay put. His offensive coordinator, his defensive coordinator, those guys, stability there is the theme, and the right kind of stability, not the wrong kind of stability that the Steelers have had the last couple of years with Matt Canada and Terrell Austin calling the plays defensively, and Mike Tomlin just being content with winning 9 games and squeaking into the playoffs and getting killed in the first round every year. That's the wrong kind of stability. The right kind of stability is what's going on in Kansas City. And 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years should prove that. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff with Donny Football coming up here in just a few minutes. Talk about some draft prospects. Our friends in the Northern Panhandle and in the Ohio Valley that are WVU fans can be excited about Zach Frazier. Is he going to be a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I have him going to the Steelers in my mock draft right now at 51 overall. But Donny might think differently about some other guys that are available at the center position. He'll talk about that as well. But Zach Frazier is an exciting young prospect. So that'll be football. And as we shift into baseball, which we'll talk about before we wrap up today, a good friend of mine, Alex Stumpf, I didn't go to high school with him, but we were alma maters of the same high school in Pittsburgh. Now the new Pirates beat reporter for MLB.com, spending previous time as on the Pirates beat for DK Pittsburgh Sports. He's now with MLB.com, so we're going to talk to him about his adjustment to the new site and what the Pirates have cooking in Bradenton right now in spring training. Is Henry Davis a big league catcher? I hope so. It's what you drafted catcher number 1 overall for. Alex has some positive things to say in that regard, too. So that made me feel a little bit better for the Pirates fan in me. O'Neal Cruz is coming back from left ankle surgery a year ago. Now, if you remember, Cruz was slated to come back somewhere in August of 2023 when he got hurt back 9 games into last season. And they elected to take the caution route, as they should have. I don't think anybody would have been mad about that, especially with where the Pirates were at the end of the year. They weren't trying to compete for a playoff spot or anything like that. So his rehab period, so to speak, was August, September, October, however long it was then. We're at the end of February now. He's 100%, and he's ready to go, and he's ready to be an impact player for the Pirates on the opening day roster, game 1 down in Miami, and of course, as the Pirates get their season rolling. Aroldis Chapman's a Pirate now. Talk about the bullpen. Alex had some very high words for the back half of this Pirates bullpen. You'll hear about that coming up in a little bit as well. And of course, some other storylines heading into Pirates spring training. Who's going to be the second baseman? Who's competing for the job at second base? Other free agents, how they sprinkle in to the Pirates in 2024. And ultimately, are they going to be a team that might be contending as we get set to push for the playoffs in the Major League Baseball season in 2024? So all that coming up. Like I said, happy to have you along. Happy to have you on the journey with me here as we get set to embark on this new podcast series here at WTOV9. I'm Jack Hillgrove. This is Jacked Up. Coming up next, a good friend, Donny Football from 93.7 The Fan. We're talking Steelers. That's coming your way right after this. Welcome back into Jacked Up, talking sports up and down the Ohio Valley. Look, it's the offseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers were a first-round exit in the NFL playoffs, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about them. And who better to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers than my good friend from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh, Mr. Donny Football. Donny, man, thanks so much for taking some time before the show today to chop it up about the Steelers, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, buddy. I appreciate you having me.
So the big story so far in this offseason for me and for the Steelers, I feel like it is the quarterback situation. As we record this, Justin Fields apparently has unfollowed the Chicago Bears on Instagram. What's the likelihood, do you think, that he ends up in the black and gold next year?
I know the Steelers right now, they're the betting favorite. If you look at some of the betting sites and like the big ones out of Vegas, like Bovada have it at like under even money. that he comes to the Steelers, but that still requires them to do something that they aren't used to doing, and that would be something that's like a major shift for them in philosophy and in their past thinking. However, we know a lot of that through our years of being Steeler fans, Jack, that Kevin Colbert ran the show for basically our whole viewing livelihood, like from the time we were very little kids until a couple of years ago. Omar Khan has already shown a thing or two about how he's looking into the future of things. We know that Mike Tomlin does like Justin Fields. Now, I think it all comes down to the price, though. The Bears obviously going to set that price high. I know they floated it out to Adam Schefter that they want a first-round pick in return, and that's how they should do it. I mean, you should set the price high. That's how negotiations work, and then you kind of try to work your way to the middle, so you'd expect any other team to shoot that down and try for lower. I'm not going to say 100% or anything crazy like that, but it's also much greater than 0%. I think it's more in between like that 33% to 66% range. And before I get caught up in Scott Steiner math, I'm just going to put it in that range of like a third to 2/3% chance that it happens, because there is absolutely interest on the Steelers' end. I think it just comes down to what the price would be. Like if they talk the Bears off the ledge of a first-round pick and it's for a second or third or maybe a third rounder and a day 3 pick down the road, I think you strike on that. I know that Fields hasn't shown a ton in his career so far in Chicago, but there's no denying there's a lot of untapped potential there. And his potential, his ceiling, is a lot higher than anybody that's on the current roster.
Yeah, and that's the thing, where I come down on it. First round pick, if that's what you got to give up, absolutely not. I'm not giving up the 20th pick for a quarterback. Now, this 52nd pick or maybe even a third round pick, yeah, I mean, I'm all ears. But you do that regardless. You go out and you give up a top 3 pick for a guy like Justin Fields for a quarterback. He's not going to come in here to back up Kenny Pickett. So let's say that they do. Let's say they give up 52 and another late round pick and maybe another late round pick in 2025. He comes in. What's that dynamic going to be like with Justin Fields and Kenny Pickett in the quarterback room?
Well, I think it's hard to deny if they actually do pull it off. I've heard multiple people say, you hear ESPN talk about it almost every day. I've listened to some other podcasts out there. Like if the Steelers do pull this off, they are undoubtedly more exciting than they were last season. And I know what Kenny Pickett showed us in the preseason last year. I know about his late game heroics. I mean, you and I were like in a watch party together when the Steelers drafted him. We were both very excited that they drafted a Pitt guy to be their next quarterback. 2 years in, it just hasn't worked out. It can't be the same way that it was 50 years ago or even 20 years ago, where you give quarterbacks a whole lot of leeway to figure things out. I mean, you're in a division with Deshaun Watson, who I know is certainly no sure thing, but if he ever gets back to that, he can play like an MVP. We already know that Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, who's done it twice, can play at an MVP level. And that's just your division, let alone the conference that's also loaded with QBs. So, I mean, I think if that's a price that you can get to, like a second rounder or a third rounder and another pick thrown in, I think you got to take your shot. Like all avenues should be explored on this offseason drive that they have. And I know that some of the local insiders have already tried to poo-poo that and say, well, they'll just bring back Mason Rudolph and they'll have a competition and that'll be that. They're dead in the water as far as I'm concerned if that's the approach they take.
Yeah, I mean, Pickett, 713 career pass attempts to 13 touchdowns. You break it down, and that's a differential of 700. That's not something you want in your starting quarterback. So it'll be definitely interesting to see how the Steelers navigate that this offseason. They've got a lot of other holes, too. Where would you like to see them, assuming they keep that 20th pick? And I think all signs are kind of pointing to that they're not going to give up that first-round pick. Where do you want to see them go in the first round in April?
Well, I'm always partial to the offensive line. I was very happy with what they did last year. Now it's just a matter of moving Broderick Jones over to the left side to the position he was meant to play, but they seem to have a love affair with Dan Moore Jr. If they have their shot at Jackson Powers Johnson at number 20, listen, I love Zach Frazier too. I know that we're going to talk about him. He's a West Virginia boy, Fairmont senior grad, and had a great career at WVU. If you got your shot at Jackson Powers Johnson, I don't care if center is like a little bit overvalued or undervalued in round one, like a position you're not supposed to take. I'm pretty convinced that that dude is going to be a perennial all-pro player. And the Steelers have such a rich history at the position. Like you think of names like Webster and Dermontti Dawson, and even a guy like Jeff Hardings and then Marquise Pouncey that took us through the 2010s as one of the best centers in football. This guy plugs right in there. They haven't had a good player at that position since Pouncey retired a few years ago. In fact, they've had some of the worst center play in football. Now, if they have somebody else slip to them, maybe a top-tier corner or maybe one of those offensive tackles, and they can bookend their offensive line with another big guy like Amarius Mims, another Georgia guy, Tyler Guyton, another name to think of. J.C. Latham is the Alabama guy. He could play right tackle, and Jones could play left. But you know me, I would love them to continue to build in the trenches. And we know Andy Weidel's history, and he's certainly not afraid to do something like that. The position I would say to not sleep on either is the defensive line, because before we know it, that unit is getting pretty thin. We don't know if Larry Ogunjobi will come back. He's on a pretty bad-looking contract as of right now. I would think they're going to restructure the deal with Cam Hayward or give him some sort of extension to kick the can down the road. DeMarvin Leal, after a promising rookie year, the dude was a healthy scratch for the last half of last season. Isaiah Loudermilk is like an okay player, but certainly not a long-term answer. Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward are really the only sure things they have coming back, and one of those guys is in his mid-30s and getting closer to the late 30s.
Do you think that and I think for, the local media, the national media, the fans, they really do overlook the glare. And when you break it down like that, I mean, it's could be very bleak and very grim on the defensive line. Do you think that those needs get overlooked because TJ Watt and in the last couple of years, Alex Highsmith have just been so darn good at rushing the edge, and they can get to the quarterback better than anybody in the league? And you look at that and say, well, they're still sacking guys, and they're still putting up numbers that way. Do you think that has any reason why the need at defensive line maybe gets overlooked at times?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, the national scope on the Steelers' front seven is always very high, and normally it's because of two or three guys. Like, it's a lot to do with TJ Watt. Alex Highsmith has become a very good pro. Cam Hayward has been a good pro for the last several years now. And before last year, Hayward was somebody who was pretty much aging backwards in his NFL career. He was not much of a player his first handful of seasons in Pittsburgh, and he's become a borderline Hall of Famer in the back half. He's been a multi-time All-Pro player, multiple Pro Bowls. Not that accolade holds a whole lot of weight anymore. But, yeah, they've had pretty middling off-ball linebacker play, and they still get praised a lot, I think, around the league for their front seven. But you can thank a lot to the guys on the outside.
Yeah, and back to the draft, I'm with you as far as where I want the Steelers to go with this one. I want tackle in round one. I love a guy like Amarius Mims, and that allows you to have, two of the best offensive linemen from the best program in college football the last 5 years with Broderick Jones and Mims. And whichever one I feel like can play left tackle, you stick with. And I like a guy like Zach Frazier in the second round. Now, over here in the Ohio Valley, specifically in the Northern Panhandle, a ton of WVU fans. You talked about him, in-state guy, played his college ball at WVU. What do you like about him? And I know you talked about Jackson Powers Johnson as a center in the first round, but if they elect to go with another position in round one and a guy like Frazier is there in 54 or wherever the Steelers are picking, what do you like about him as a prospect?
Well, one of the reasons why I like the idea of Powers Johnson so early is because I have my doubts that Frazier will be there when they're picking in the second round. I think they pick, it's either 51 or 52. I've seen like multiple different things because it's based on, I think they have a tiebreaker with somebody around where they're picking at. But Frazier would be a hell of a consolation prize for sure. Because do I think he can be the player that Powers Johnson can be? Not quite, but an absolute upgrade from what they have had. They go from Marquise Pouncey to Kendrick Green, who, let's be honest, was a terrible pick in the third round. They picked the guy who's undersized. He's out of position. He has said as much since his departure. They didn't seem to care about that. And Frazier is somebody is a center. He has played center in the area, in the tri-state area, for the last how many years? I watched the guy play his last year or two of high school when I was announcing high school football games in Fairmont, West Virginia. Then the dude had a great career at WVU, had an injury late in his career. That's what you kind of have to hope for him to get to the Steelers, I think, at 52, because if any other team needs a center, he seems to be the clear-cut second guy after Powers Johnson. So if, assuming that Powers Johnson gets picked in that first round on the first night of the draft, they're going to be sweating it out a little bit, I think, as it gets closer and closer to number 50, hoping that he's there. But I would be happy after the first two nights of the draft if they came away with one of those two guys to play center, because they have to get back sort of to their roots at that position.
Yeah, not like our friend Chase mimicking Mason Cole in Indianapolis with the low snap on the video that went viral. Steelers picking 20th in the first round, 51-84, and then 119. Couple picks in the fourth at 119 and 120 back to back, and then 196 and 237. Look, it's no secret that the Kansas City Chiefs are the top dogs, not just of the Steelers conference, but of the entire league. And you peel it back a little bit more. Maybe not even just in the AFC, in the Steelers division alone, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. You talked about the possibility that Deshaun Watson could, up his play and play like he did once of old for the Browns. Long story short, there's a ton of good teams and a ton of good quarterbacks ahead of the Steelers in the AFC. What, in your eyes, Donnie, do you think the Steelers have to do to get back into that upper echelon of teams to where they're legitimately competing, not just for an AFC North title, but for an AFC title, because I feel like that's still the standard that Steelers fans hold to the black and gold.
The way things are now, it's actually kind of cut and dry to me. Like, you have to either hit on the quarterback, and we have to hope that if they go forward with Kenny Pickett here in his third year, which I think would be the odds-on favorite that they do, just knowing the Steelers' history, you have to hope that he really clicks with Arthur Smith, because you cannot get by in this league anymore with substandard quarterback play. And what got the Steelers to the big games of the past, their history has been great defense, running the football. Even in the years where they got to some of those big games, I know the offense didn't fly off the page to anybody, but they still had Ben Roethlisberger, and they still had somebody at that position that defenses had to respect and had to take seriously. And not that Ben had a great playoff resume, but he did pull off the 2 Super Bowl wins. There were games where he did not look good in postseason games. However, like I said, you went into most games as the Pittsburgh Steelers, and as people would look at it from the outside, you normally start with the quarterback position. Who has the better player there? And we went into a lot of games, Jack, while we watched Steelers football for the last 20-plus years, and the Steelers had the advantage at the game's most important position. They don't have that anymore. There are very few teams around the league, and especially in their own conference, where you could even say the Steelers have an advantage right now at the quarterback position.
As the Steelers, and I'm going to put you on the spot, as the Steelers open up in 7 months, September of 2024, who's taking the first snap under center?
I think it'll be Kenny Pickett. I would like to see them pull off the deal for Justin Fields, but I think Kenny Pickett will be the guy that takes that first snap. What I expect to happen, if I'm Mason Rudolph, I'm not signing back here. I don't care what the Steelers tell me. That guy deserves to be elsewhere for the way that the organization mostly jerked him around for the last 5+ years. And if he does come back, that's really just going to split the locker room right down the middle. I don't think it's a good idea at all, unless you want to have a true competition, but we know how the Steelers have treated those in the past. But I would think that the quarterback room will be something like Kenny Pickett. I think the Ryan Tannehill dots will finally get connected all the way back to here, his relationship with Arthur Smith. And I think they take a mid-round quarterback, whether that be Spencer Rattler, whether that be Michael Pratt, the kid from Tulane, maybe a Jordan Travis who suffered an injury at the end of last year. I think that's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, I'm with you. My mid-round quarterback that I think they take is Joe Milton out of Tennessee. Maybe kind of for the same reasons that they took Kenny Pickett. A lot of college starts, a lot of experience at the college level, which was one of the things that Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin talked about when Pickett was drafted. I didn't even get a chance to ask you about Arthur Smith. What were your thoughts on the hire when it was made? I know we were in a group chat that went back and forth with some pretty heated arguments about when Arthur Smith was hired. Where do you see the Steelers' offense this year with him calling the shots and with some of the assistants that they've surrounded themselves with? New receivers coach, new quarterbacks coach as well.
I mean, so at first I was lukewarm on it. Like we joked around, it would be a lot of the same thing. But there is no denying that Arthur Smith actually has an NFL resume. And the last two guys that coordinated this offense did not. Matt Canada had one successful season as the OC at Pitt, and that's one of the things that maybe got him in the door here, along with the relationship he had with Mike Tomlin's son. And Randy Fichtner was just a regular guy. I mean, he was Big Ben's buddy, and it's more likely that he's sitting next to me in the bleachers next season than coaching football anywhere. We haven't seen that guy coach any level of football since his departure. Matt Canada,
I don't think maybe Canada has ended up anywhere.
Yeah, like maybe Canada will get back into the college ranks, but that's probably the highest he would go. So, I mean, I have to say that I've grown to like the hire a little bit more. Like we know what their philosophy and their approach is going to be, especially if they forge ahead with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, but also if they would make a move and make that trade for Justin Fields, let's say, their plan is going to be to run the football. I mean, that is what Tennessee did very well in Arthur Smith's time there. And I believe 2 years ago in Atlanta, they were one of the leading rushing teams in the league. And the leading rushing team in the league was the Bears because of Justin Fields. I mean, the guy is electric with his legs. So that's why, too, that trade is of interest to me, because you have a quarterback that defenses have to plan for. Maybe he's not the best passer of the football in the world, but the dude is without question one of the top three most electric guys with his legs, behind Lamar Jackson, maybe Josh Allen, if you want to put him ahead of Fields. And then you have what has turned into a good combination in the backfield. Najee Harris, I expect them to exercise the fifth-year option there. Jaylen Warren, I'm a huge Jaylen Warren guy. That dude is a wrecking ball and a spark plug for that offense. So that's why I think things could work out there. If it opens things up in the pass game, that'll make it easier for the quarterback. So, I mean, that's why I'm optimistic about Smith, and I do like that they actually made an effort to expand the staff a little bit, because historically the Steelers have not spent a whole lot of money with their offensive staff, and they've had one of the smallest coaching staffs in football for, I don't know, the last decade or so. So I like, maybe these guys don't work out, but I'm glad that they take a chance and do a few things differently than what they've done in the past.
Yeah, and we're going into a season with an offensive coordinator that's actually called plays at the NFL level before. So that is a baby step, but a much welcomed one for the Steelers. Before I let you go, Donnie, as we get set for week 1 in 2024, do you see anything different, good or bad, positive or negative, anything better than maybe just 9-8 or 10-7 from the Steelers?
I mean, it's so easy to just predict them to go
Yeah.
9-8, 10-7, because by hook or by crook, their asses are going to get there, and it doesn't really matter how bad things look at times. So, honestly, probably not. Like, I don't know how things will end up going with the quarterback position, but I've looked ahead because you know me. I mean, you know how we get excited about tailgating games and going to games and even the road trips that we try to pick out. That home schedule next year is daunting, to say the least. I looked at it again yesterday. They play the AFC West and they play the NFC East. There's one team that you can debate the Steelers have a better quarterback situation than, and I still think I'd give the edge to that team because Daniel Jones has at least won a playoff game in the last few seasons. They got to hope for a lot of injury help when it comes to their home schedule. They got the 3 guys in their division. Then they got Mahomes. They have Justin Herbert. Dak Prescott comes in here. Aaron Rodgers comes in here. And the only other one is Daniel Jones.
9 days past the big game. A lot can change from now until football season, but we will see what happens. Donnie, man, thanks for taking some time to sit down with me, chop it up about the Steelers. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, buddy. Glad to be a part of it.
Yes, sir. Well, that was Donny Football from 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. Coming up next on Jacked Up, we talk Buccos, and we take it over to Bradenton, Florida with MLB.com beat reporter Alex Stumpf. That is coming up next. Well, pitchers and catchers reported to spring training last week. The first full squad workout for the Pittsburgh Pirates was Monday, February 19th, the first spring training games, the weekend of the 23rd, 24th. Baseball season is pretty much here. And with that, let's welcome in Pittsburgh Pirates beat reporter, now with MLB.com, Mr. Alex Stumpf. Alex, man, thanks so much for taking some time to join us. How are things going over at the new place, man? How's the adjustment period going so far?
Hey, Jack. So far, so good. I'm really liking MLB.com. Excited for what the future holds there.
Awesome, man. Speaking of the future, a lot of people, when it comes to the Pittsburgh Pirates, they want the future to be now. That seems to be kind of the theme heading into 2024. So let's jump right into it. I think the biggest storyline heading into spring training is the Pirates' number 1 overall pick from last year and Paul Skeens. From what you've seen so far, how's he looking? How's he adjusting to life and big league spring training? And the $1 million question: when the heck are we going to see him in a Pirates uniform?
Well, to answer the last one first, there are a few things that he needs, a few check boxes that he has to mark off first. The biggest one probably being that he has to show that he can handle a 5-day rotation. In college, you go once a week. Major leagues, it's usually once every 5 days. Now, that's not necessarily anything against him or, something that's a major cause for concern, but you got to show you can do it first. So that's why I'm pretty pessimistic that we're going to see him opening day. I would expect some point in mid-May, early June that this guy gets called up because he is a special pitcher. We all know it. There is a reason why he was taken first overall. There's a reason why basically every prospect outlet has him as the top pitcher prospect in the game. Pirates fans are going to see him sooner rather than later. I just don't see him heading south to Miami for that opening game.
Yeah, and with that, a couple of other guys and even without Skeens, the pitching rotation this year is going to be interesting. I mean, I know JT Brubaker is just moved to the 60-day IL, but you'd have to imagine that he'll be hopefully joining the fold at some point in 2024. Guys like Martin Perez, Marco Gonzalez that were just signed in free agency. Mitch Keller, obviously, hopefully kind of poised for a big year in 2024. But the other thing, too, Alex, is guys like Roansy Contreras, Quinn Priester, Luis Ortiz. How do those three specifically fit into what the Pirates pitching rotation might look like in April, do all three of those guys have a chance to be in the starting five?
Yeah, I would say they all do. And unless there's a trade that comes through, I think there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be two guys, out of that. Add Bailey Falter into that mix and a couple of the other signings the Pirates have made since camp started, like Josh Fleming, Chase Anderson, because I don't really see a big trade coming through. And if they do make another pitching signing, I don't see how it's going to be a major league deal at this time. Maybe a different opportunity presents itself, before we get too far deep into spring training and games. But I kind of look at what they have as more or less what they're going to take. Now, a year ago, I think everyone would have just, thought, yeah, of course, Quinn Priester and Luis Ortiz and Roansy Contreras are going to be part of next year's rotation. They were very highly, touted prospects, and they all hit bumps in the road for various reasons. That doesn't mean you got to write them off. Like Roansy Contreras and Quinn Priester in particular, I watched their bullpens at Pirate City. They looked really good. I know it's a first bullpen. It's going to be different whenever you get hitters, and then it's going to be different whenever you get game situations. But first impression, they looked better than they did last year. Luis Ortiz dropped a couple nasty changeups on Oneil Cruz that was like borderline bullying whenever a hitter's trying to get his timing this early in camp. So I look at those guys, and Bailey Falter in this mix also, who they acquired last trade deadline. Contreras and Falter are out of minor league options. I see them in this opening day roster somehow, some way, even if it's the bullpen, if things don't work out, because they're not really in a position to get rid of potential starting pitchers at this time. But there's a lot riding on them, and that was always kind of in the Pirates' mind whenever they were going through this offseason. Yeah, they were looking for more starting pitchers. Yeah, in a perfect world, they probably would have acquired one more, but they always had in the back of their heads also, like, we got to make sure we give these young guys opportunities because they still, could be a factor into this team long term.
Yeah, and as far as the guys that did get picked up, Perez and Gonzalez, two guys that you see also in that starting rotation, and what do they bring to the Pirates rotation that maybe the Bucks haven't had maybe in the last couple of seasons?
Well, I mean, the Pirates have definitely had success with this type of pitcher, that the softer tossing lefty, whether it was Tyler Anderson, whether it's Jose Quintana, whether it was Rich Hill. That type of pitcher does pretty well because lefty on lefty in PNC Park, that's a good matchup. And then whenever it comes to right-handed hitters, if they hit it hard, but they hit it to third base, well, you got the best defender, in the game right now, gobbling up those ground balls. So it really does become a case of, well, we've had success with this type of pitcher. I see why they targeted them. They bring a veteran leadership, to this angle here. But to actually answer the question of what do they bring that's different, I'm looking at the cutters. Because that was a pitch that really was a, big pitch for Perez whenever he was an all-star in 2022 that he didn't have last year. Marco Gonzalez, he went the drive line. The cutter was a big part of it. Josh Fleming, to a lesser extent, also is bringing back a cutter after he had, great success, got great ground balls with it, early on in his career, but then had it shelved halfway through 2022. I wonder if that pitch is kind of what the Pirates are leaning into a little more this year. These new lefties all bring that, though.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you make as well, with those guys kind of fitting the mold that the Pirates have had success with, in the last couple of seasons, whether that be Rich Hill or Jose Quintana, guys that they ended up flipping at the deadline for some prospects. Now, as we, hit another talking point as far as 2024 goes, one of the biggest ones that's not pitching related, probably the biggest one that's not pitching related, is the return of Oneil Cruz. Now, Monday, Derek Shelton, noted that, yeah, the Pirates, won 14 more games in 2023 without Cruz than when they had him a bunch in 2022, but said that he's an impact player. How soon do you think Cruz can be an impact player coming back from, missing an entire season because of ankle surgery? I mean, that's can't be anything, minor to come back from, so to speak.
No, but I think he can have an impact day one. I mean, he's 100% right now. He had some setbacks while running last year, which the hope all year last year was that he was going to be able to come back. They just played it cautious, and with a couple setbacks, it's like, okay, we're not going to push, for him to come back for just a few games at the end, whenever he's not 100% and make something bigger than it is. So I think he could have an impact right out of the gate. Like I've seen him move. It's just drills. Obviously, he's not at full speed. Nobody is at full speed right now, but he's moving laterally well. He's swinging the bat well. He looks comfortable, and he's smiling. He's having fun, and that's kind of what Derek Shelton hinted at. That's one of the biggest things from him right now. Just after missing almost all of last year, is the game still fun to you? And it looks like it's still fun to him.
That's good. I mean, that's also really good to hear. Now, he seems to kind of have it nailed down at shortstop. Other partner in the middle of the infield right now to be determined. There's a big position battle going on at second base. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Who do you see as the Pirates starter at second base come opening day? And whoever that guy is it, he going to be the everyday starter at second base, or do you see maybe a platoon situation going on there?
Well, there are three guys really who are in this camp right now competing for it, and that's Liover Peguero, Nick Gonzalez, and Jared Triolo. And of that group, Triolo had the best year last year, but he's also the most offensively versatile. I see him getting a lot of starts this year, maybe even like a regular starter's workload, but almost in like a Ben Zobrist type of role right now, where he bounces all around the diamond. This guy needs a day off. Okay, Triolo's going to go there. I'm leaning towards Peguero right now just because I think he took the bigger step forward last year, and while it was inconsistent, I think he showed a little more in the majors. But that said, this is wide open. That's just a very early on impression, kind of the same thing that I had in, beginning of, the offseason. It's going to be very much a competition. What can these guys do? I think you can take a lot from these games, and don't read into only, it's always Gonzalez at second base and Peguero's playing short. That must mean Nick Gonzalez is, leading the second base competition. It's about the at-bats. It's about the work you do, behind the scenes at second base also. There's a lot that goes into it. It's pretty wide open, though.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of the same thing as Skeens, like getting used to the idea of being in a five-man rotation is big. For these young guys, Peguero, Gonzalez, it's getting used to really being at the major league level every day, because that's what you take them, that's what you sign them for, in hopes that they're able to develop into everyday big league players. Some guys that are everyday big league players or have been, or some guys that they've been able to acquire via free agency, most recently Yasmani Grandal. But the big one, and for the big money for the Pirates, speaking, is Aroldis Chapman, coming in for over $10 million this year. He kind of seems like he adds some really high, obviously the high velocity, but just some more firepower to a bullpen that I think has potential to be pretty darn good this year.
I would second that. I think this bullpen is the strength of this team on the field right now. And I talked to Colin Holderman about it, because last year he was kind of not officially, but a setup man for most of the year. And he brought up to me, he's like, do you know what it's going to be like whenever there's going to be three right-handers and then three left-handers? It's like, it doesn't matter if we pitch the seventh or the eighth. Like, we're just going to be in great situations to just crush these guys. I see this rotation. It's got a lot of depth. It's got a lot of different ways that you can deploy these guys, whether that's opener, whether that's fireman, to get strikeouts, whether it's playing the lefty-lefty with a guy like Ryan Borucki. And whenever you get through all that, I think Holderman, Chapman, Bednar is the best seventh, eighth, ninth inning punch in baseball. And I'm not even sure it's that particularly close. I mean, Bednar is definitely top five at his position. Chapman is a top five setup man in this league. Colin Holderman had a really good, first full campaign last year. This team, there are a lot of questions with the starting rotation, especially those last two spots. If you can shorten those games and hold on to leads, that would go a long way to taking that next step in 2024.
100%. I feel like as Pirates fans, they've been used to the Bucs blowing games late because of lack of firepower in the bullpen, and hopefully that's not the case for this year. Now, another one not pitching related is former number one overall pick in Henry Davis. Is he going to be a big league catcher at some point, Alex?
The Pirates think he is, and some point may be just opening day with this. Like, Grandal signed a major league deal. He's a veteran. He's going to be one of the two catchers on that opening day roster. Now, I think a lot of people misinterpreted that as he's the starting catcher. It's like, no, that's not what it means. It means he's 1 out of 2. Henry Davis has all of the runway that he could possibly want to prove himself. Now he has to earn this job. He has to prove that he is big league ready. He has to prove that he can handle a major league pitching staff. If he can do that, he could be the starting catcher, just going forward and just hold on to this position. He's got an opportunity here. He's known he's going to have this opportunity, and he's put in a lot of work and he's put on a lot of muscle for it. The guy looks like he is ready, to take that step.
Now, with a guy, I mean, they brought in a guy like Ali Sanchez, Jason DeLay with a lot of major league experience. Do you see a scenario maybe where they keep three guys? I don't want to say they keep three catchers on the opening day roster because Davis is, DH'd. He's played in the outfield a little bit. Do they keep three guys that have the ability to catch behind the plate on the opening day roster?
I asked Ben Sherrington that to paraphrase him a little bit, the overwhelming odds are the Pirates are going to carry two for the extended period of time. Now, there might be a time whenever you do need to bring up a Jason DeLay, whenever you still have Grandal or Davis. And it's something that I think the Pirates are the rare team that they could even consider this, because Davis can play right field, and you've got guys like Bay and Triolo who can play 4, 5, 6 positions, that you do have a defensively versatile team. But is that still the best way to deploy, your team? It comes down to a lot of questions like that. It's opportunity. Jason DeLay is my prediction right now as the guy on the outside looking in, but he's got minor league options. I would still fully expect him to be in a Pirates uniform at some point over the course of the year.
And, back to the minor league aspect a little bit, a lot of people are looking forward to seeing Paul Skeens, but I feel like there's some other guys down in the system that we might see make their major league debut this year. Maybe as the dog days of the summer come around, might be guys that come up and play at the major league level on a consistent basis. So if we can, Alex, I'm going to kind of just go down the list here, the top 5 prospects at the end of the year, according to MLB.com, with the exception of Tamar Johnson, because I think we can both agree that we're still a couple of years away from seeing him at the big league level. Some pitchers on this list, and a guy like Jared Jones, a right-handed arm. Do we see him at all in 2024? If so, when, and what kind of role could he play at the big league level?
Yeah, if he's healthy, I fully expect to see Jared Jones in the majors at some point this year. Like, he had a year that he didn't have to be added to the roster, yes, which is why, we didn't see him make a September cameo last year, even though I think he probably was ready enough to do it. He still has some growing to do. I still expect him to start in the minors. I wonder if he could be the first of these prospects who gets called up, maybe even before Paul Skeens. Unless we get to June and neither one of them is up. I could see Jones up in the majors sooner rather than later, even if it's like a spot start or something, in May. He's got power stuff. He is a legitimate top 100 prospect. He is someone to watch.
What about a guy, a lefty, in Anthony Salmetto, a second-round pick a couple of years ago? Is 2024 the year for him to maybe make his major league debut, or does he still have some things to work on at the minor league level?
Has some things to work on, but he is widely been regarded as one of the more advanced young pitching prospects that this organization has had. We're going to see him in Altoona, and I would expect him to get a call up to AAA. At which point, if you are a top prospect in AAA, you're kind of on call. Anything could theoretically happen. Now, he would need to be added to the roster. I would consider this, a September-ish type of deal, if he does get called up. I'm less optimistic we're going to see him in the majors in 2024, but I'm not closing the door on it. If I had to put odds on it, I would say about 25-ish%. It's got to be more like if this team is competing in September and they need a left-handed pitcher, they're not going to keep him down in the minors, just because of service time or whatever. If he shows he's ready at that point, they would give him a call.
So, and as we wrap up here, Alex, look, I look at the Pirates in 2024, and I honestly can't help but get kind of excited. You look at what Mitch Keller did, in the first half of 2023 with him back anchoring your pitching staff, at least for the early part of the year. The idea that Paul Skeens comes in maybe a third of the way into the year and can be really darn good. And then in the lineup, Cruz, Hayes, Reynolds, McCutchen, a power guy like maybe potentially with some pop and Rowdy Tellez at first base. I think that this core that the Pirates have heading into 2024 is something to be excited about. Do you echo those thoughts for Pirates fans?
I see a pathway that this team does become competitive as soon as this year. They're going to need a couple things to break their way. Like O'Neal Cruz is going to need to prove that he lives up to the hype. That maybe doesn't mean all-star or whatever right out of the, but like O'Neal Cruz needs to prove that he is a big-time player. Henry Davis needs to prove that he could be a major league catcher. You need at least one or two of those young pitchers that we talked about earlier. Contreras, they are a big league starter. Like there are a lot of things that need to break the Pirates' way, but like I have varying levels of confidence that they could. So I kind of view this team as maybe, not a favorite or anything, but this division isn't too strong yet. You've got a young core. If those young players can take a similar leap like they did last year, then yeah, I think it could be a competitive ball club.
Welcome back to Jacked Up as we wrap things up here on our very first episode of our brand new podcast series. Thanks to Donny Football from 93.7 The Fan, taking some time out before he gets his show planning underway over at 93.7 The Fan to talk some Steelers. And, of course, thanks to newest Pirates beat reporter at MLB.com, Alex Stumpf, for talking about the Buccos. As we wrap things up here, final segment of the show, something I want to try on for size. What jacks me up? Now, we're going to talk, this is going to be kind of where I get on my soapbox a little bit and talk about what some of the stuff in the sports world, sports happenings going on right now that fires me up. And first, I want to talk about the Cleveland Guardians. For me, you've got a guy like Terry Francona who is so beloved, so maybe not just around Cleveland and not this area or this region as he grew up in this area. But you've got a guy like that that's known to win, known winner, World Series champion manager that was able to kind of find a second career, so to speak, after Boston with you in Cleveland. He gets old, right? He retires. Good for him. I wish him all the very best as he embarks on this retirement journey. So you go out and you get a manager like Stephen Vogt, and I couldn't be more happy for the Guardians. I couldn't be more ecstatic for them, and I'll tell you why. He's a catcher at the big league level and was a catcher at the major league level for 11 seasons for Tampa, Oakland, Milwaukee, San Fran, Arizona, Atlanta, and then he wrapped up his time in Oakland again. 2 stints with the Athletics, 6 teams, a guy that's been around the league, and you look at that and you're like, 6 teams, couldn't find a home. I look at it like this. The guy was a good enough backstop in Major League Baseball, and he's only like a career 240 hitter, so it's not like he was an everyday guy, but he was good enough defensively and good enough up here to where 5 other teams, I guess 6 really if you count Oakland for wanting him back before his career wrapped up, they looked at him when he became available and said, we want him. We think he can add value to our team. Maybe not as an everyday player, but as a guy that we want in our clubhouse. All traits that you want in a manager, if you ask me. And if you ask a lot of people about the idea of hiring former players as managers almost immediately, to me, no better position is more suited to being a big league manager than the backstop. They're the smartest players in the diamond. They are kind of natural born leaders, kind of keeping everybody together out there defensively. And for a guy like Vogt, who was in the major leagues until his late 30s, guy that was maybe even a de facto manager before the fact that he got the official title. Now, he retired in 2022, was a coach for the Mariners in 2023, 1 season as a coach right after he retired, and now he's a manager of a big league ball club. For the Guardians, I think you got to be excited about the guy that Stephen Vogt can be, because he goes from being an old ball player to now a young manager and managing his own club before he's 40 years old. So I like the idea of what he brings to Cleveland and a team that can be a contender in the AL Central this year, at least I think. So we'll have to see how things play out for the Guardians. Now we flip back over to football. And I talked about this before we got into our conversation with Donny. The Steelers will not compete for a Super Bowl until they find a franchise quarterback and an elite franchise quarterback. That's the harsh and bleak and black and white reality of it. And I say elite franchise quarterback because you look at what the Minnesota Vikings have right now in Kirk Cousins, or another name floating around for the Steelers, but what they've had, right? Is Kirk Cousins an elite level quarterback? I would say no. I think he's very, very good. But how far has very, very good gotten the Minnesota Vikings with Kirk Cousins under center? Hasn't put him in a Super Bowl. And you might be sitting there thinking, Jack, come on. Like, what we're talking about a Super Bowl? Yeah. I grew up a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I watched the Steelers play in 3 Super Bowls and win 2 of them before I hit puberty. So I want to hold the black and gold to a standard of competing for Lombardi trophies every year. Because if you're a Chiefs fan, I mean, you're in it now. You don't win the Super Bowl, it's a bust. That's the black and white reality of it. And because Patrick Mahomes is another reason why the Steelers, I don't think, will be competing for a Super Bowl anytime soon, because Patrick Mahomes still has a pulse and he still plays football for the Kansas City Chiefs. The day that he does not play quarterback for the Chiefs anymore will be open season for anybody else in the AFC. Now, there'll be teams like Buffalo and like Cincinnati and like Baltimore that will have a chance to dethrone Mahomes, because Brady, like, there were teams like Indy and the Steelers and the Ravens that were able to win Super Bowls out of the AFC in the Tom Brady reign. They were all sprinkled in there before Brady won 6 of them in New England. So there will be opportunities for players like Joe Burrow to get a ring, Lamar Jackson to get a ring, Josh Allen to get a ring, and Justin Herbert to get a ring. Because they've got an elite coach now in Jim Harbaugh. Those opportunities are not there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not. They're not. And they won't be there until they get themselves elite quarterback play, an elite franchise quarterback. Back to my comparison. Kirk Cousins, franchise quarterback. Elite? No. Matt Ryan, a franchise quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. Elite? One time in his career he was elite. 1 year. Won an MVP. What happened? They made the Super Bowl. They blew it in one of the worst choke jobs in the history of sports. But the 1 year they had elite quarterback play from their franchise guy, they got to the sport's biggest stage. See where I'm going? The Ravens have elite quarterback play at the franchise level. The Bengals do when Joe Burrow's healthy. The Bills do. The Chargers do when Herbert's healthy. That's all in the way of the Steelers. So for me, I can't be nothing but pessimistic right now that the Steelers just don't have what it takes to be Super Bowl contenders until they get an elite franchise quarterback in there. Am I saying Justin Fields can be that? Probably not. But he's definitely going to give you a better chance to win in 2024 than what the Steelers have had at quarterback the last couple of seasons. Back to the Buccos. And I had this one written down, and then after talking to Alex, I feel better about it, because Alex is down in Bradenton. He's covering the team every day at spring training, and he'll be at the ballpark every day this summer covering the team. I wrote down the Pirates, ... drafting a catcher first overall and just not having him catch. That seemed to be the route that the Buccos were taking with Henry Davis last year, but last year was his first year at the big league level. He's younger than me. He's got an opportunity to still be the franchise backstop for the Pirates. And Alex told us, and if you missed it, you can check it out on our this episode archived on our YouTube channel, on our website. He's going to catch, and he'll be the like when you got Paul Skeens starting game 1 of the playoff series for the Pittsburgh Pirates, whatever that hopefully happens, Henry Davis will be catching for Paul Skeens. That will be happening. And after talking with Alex and after hearing what he had to say, I'm confident that Henry Davis will be this team's starting catcher. Might even happen opening day this year. So that made me feel a little bit better. And the last thing, college football sucks. It's just to be black and white about it, it is just not fun right now to be a college football fan. I think it is exciting because you have the idea of all these teams changing conferences, the Big Ten adding UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon, the Big 12 adding a bunch of new teams, everybody rating the Big 12 or the Pac-12, so to speak. And of course, the 12 team in the expanded college football playoff will be exciting because you'll get some teams in there that you might get the idea or the possibility of some March Madness like upsets with a mid-power 5 or a mid-major conference champion getting in as the 11 or 12 seed and upsetting, a Power 5, top 5 ranked team. So that's exciting. What's not exciting is being a coach at the college level. And as a Pitt guy, I'll compare the programs of Pitt and West Virginia because they're kind of at the same level right now. So we'll use West Virginia, Ohio Valley's sake, as a standard. If I'm Neil Brown, I have a harder time coaching college football than I do Ryan Day. Why do you say that? Oh, I don't know. Ryan Day went out and spent a couple $1,000,000 on elite transfers. Downs from Alabama, Judkins from Ole Miss, Julian Sayin from Alabama. And then, I lose my offensive coordinator to a coaching job before he even calls one play in practice for me. What am I going to do? I'm going to go pry away a Power 5 head coach to be my offensive coordinator. Chip Kelly is who I'm talking about. Thank you, computer. Now, do I think that Ryan Day had to swindle or pull some Houdini magic to go get Chip Kelly? No. No, Chip Kelly was one of the most outspoken people and coaches in college football against what's going on with the way that the conferences are shaking out, with the way that NIL has just overtaken college athletics. Do you think he wanted to be a head coach and deal with all that at UCLA, moving into the Big Ten? UCLA is a big-time program, and they have the capabilities, the facilities, the funding to be an elite level, top tier. I talk with my hands if you can't tell. Top tier Big Ten team. But you're going into a conference that has Michigan, defending national champs, 15-0. Ohio State spent a buku, ridiculous amount of money and through NIL on transfers. Penn State, and you come into the conference with the national runners-up, a team in Oregon who is probably going to compete for a spot in the college football playoff again as well. And USC, historically, they're USC. No, I don't want to compete with that if I'm Chip Kelly. I'm going to go call plays and be what I am, an elite offensive mind in football for an elite program, and try to get one of these on my ring finger. So that's the way I look at it. And Ryan Day's got an easier time at it than Neil Brown does, or Pat Narduzzi does, or mid-level Power 5 program head coaches do, because they're not going to be able to compete with these big schools and their NIL funds. I remember when NIL became like a thing, right? And you've got all these teams and all these players getting NIL deals. I think Spencer Rattler had an NIL deal through Raising Cane's, because they could do that now. They could be spokesmen and spokeswomen for businesses, nationally, locally, wherever their college town is, and get paid that way. And rightfully so. now you hear the term collective, and each big school's got a collective, an NIL collective, where they get a bunch of people together, raise a bunch of money, and once these players come into these programs, they can say, here you go. Here's your so-and-so collective athlete. Like for the Pitt Panthers, it's Alliance 412. So all these players that come here and get NIL deals, they're Alliance 412 athletes. And then these collectives will have them go, promote things through the community and stuff like that. But it's really just a money pool for these guys to be able to come in and make as much money as they'll ever want. And then you'll have the idea of players staying in college for longer because of it. Like Caitlin Clark. Look at what she's doing. They're talking about her. She has another year of eligibility at the college level. Could she go play in the WNBA right now? Yes. Could she be one of the best players in the WNBA right now? Yes. Do I go to the WNBA if I'm Caitlin Clark? No. Because I will make double, maybe triple through NIL at Iowa next year than I would in the WNBA. And if I'm her, I stay. For that reason, and because she'll be able to shatter Pete Maravich's NCAA all-time scoring record to the point where nobody, man or woman, will be able to compete with it ever again. So, deep breath, off the soapbox. There you have it. That was the first episode of Jacked Up. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to watch this. This is going to be a weekly thing. We're going to bring in, as I said off the top, we're going to bring in some cool guests for you. Try to do it every week. If not, we're going to be talking sports with you here each week on YouTube and on our website, WTOV9.com. So I'm Jack Hillgrove. This has been episode 1 of Jacked Up. Thank you so much for staying on the ride with us, and we will talk to you soon.